What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the endlessly edgy Dr. Disaster, and South of Midnight has been in its early access period now for a few days, and I've gotta say, it looks like so far I was wrong when it comes to this game. I saw the player count for it on Steam peaking at just under 500 concurrent players on its opening day, and I said that this weekend we would likely see that number go up by a decent amount because obviously the weekends are typically peak gamer hours. For once though, I was
wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
At the time of this recording on Saturday morning, you can see that the peak player count for this weekend on South of Midnight is just under their all-time peak on the day that it released. Saturday or Sunday might still change that, but it really seems that the game has virtually no momentum. Gamers aren't interested in playing as an unattractive girl boss of color for the 4,793rd time this past year, especially when it is attached to a game whose gameplay looks about as inspired as an unclean toilet. But this isn't for a lack of trying on part of the game journalists, who really want this game to be a success. They are using their patented method of shilling for this turd.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Over on Metacritic, the game has been rated a 77 out of 100 with 66 reviews in, though on Steam, the highest rated review for the game by a wide margin is this one right here, which absolutely rips the game apart. And it comes from someone who pre-ordered South of Midnight. This person really wanted the game to succeed, and I can understand why. For a lot of folks, the gothic southern setting is exactly what they want from a game, but this is probably the most level-headed and honest review that I've seen in the past few days, which we're going to look at, as well as what all these journalist shills are saying about South of Midnight. They have been trying like hell, combating the gamer sentiment against this game, but once again, we can see that nobody listens to game journalists, and this was never a fair fight. Alright me hearties, make sure you hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and also, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. I have audiobook of a dark fantasy novel I've written, which will be available for members first in the next week or two, and there is also a space pirate cartoon called Scallywags, which I've been working on and which will also be available to members first. The thing is, I realize it's important that we not just complain about what we don't like, alternatives must be provided, so I humbly ask that you consider becoming a member of the channel, which the daily cost of doing so ends up being a fraction of the cost of your morning cup of coffee. But alright, let's look at all the reviews of South of Midnight and see what is being said about this Sweet Baby Inc. game. And what's really amusing to me as a side note is that this was, in fact, a game that was worked on by Sweet Baby, but not many people are really talking about that. It's become kind of a background characteristic of the title, but the game is still selling like shit. It just goes to show that people naturally are not inclined to play the sort of slop that Sweet Baby consults on. People are completely repelled by that type of game. But anyhow, as I showed you before, the journalist shills are trying really hard to make sure people feel differently about a game that aligns with their worldview. They didn't rate it quite as high as something like Dragon Age the Veilguard or Assassin's Creed Shadows, giving it a 77 out of 100, but they were pretty positive in their words about it, Games Hub gave it a freaking 100 out of 100, which eliminates any last semblance of integrity or relevancy that they had. Imagine being ridiculous enough to say that this was a perfect game. But they wrote here, South of Midnight is an incredible experience and a rare fantasy adventure that grasps deeper themes wholeheartedly, telling a story that is cinematic, dynamic, beautiful, and heart-wrenching at every turn. What a wonderful world we live in, that games like South of Midnight exist. Yeah, this was written by someone who desperately wanted this game to be amazing, but what they fail to acknowledge is that it is barely a game. But the person who wrote this review for Steam here also wanted the game to be good, as they say in their very first sentence. Keep in mind, this is someone who clearly paid for early access to the title. They not only bought the game, but paid extra to play it early, and yet they still don't have good things to say about it. And this is the highest rated review on the game thus far by a long shot. It is absolutely dripping with authenticity, which is why this sort of review is so much more appealing than what we see in the media. Anyhow, this person wrote, I really want to like this game, but sadly I don't. South of Midnight looks like a playable Leica movie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but anyhow, the art style is fantastic. More of this, please. I'm captivated by the world they created. I like the protagonist. I like the Southern Gothic vibes. I like looking at this world and being in it. Unfortunately, I don't really think it's all that fun to play. This is a linear, narrative-driven action platformer in the same vein as Psychonauts, Jak and Daxter, etc., but nothing to make it stand out mechanically. Nothing here is really all that unique, which might not matter if it executed its design and gameplay better. The platforming is just so rigid, and the environmental puzzles are just so uninteresting. They don't really feel like things I have to figure out, and there's no joy in executing some sort of complex maneuver you might find in other games. In other words, this sounds like it isn't a video game so much as a story. This is the gaming equivalent of Oscar bait. You know, those movies that studios put out that nobody watches and nobody has heard of because it's boring and uninteresting, but it still wins 14 Oscars because it pushes progressive shitlib propaganda while forgetting that it's supposed to be a movie. South of Midnight sounds like it's like that, but in gaming form. Anyhow, reading on. The puzzles are just things in the way you get through mindlessly. Move this box over here, make this platform appear, find the button prompt, find a painted ledge, get into a locked arena to fight off some enemies. It's all just so very bland and straightforward. Combat is the worst aspect of the game. Again, nothing unique, but that could have been forgiven if it were any fun. If you're going to get this game, I highly recommend knocking the game down to one of its easier difficulties. Otherwise, they're just damaged sponges whose attacks you have to dodge and button mash your way to victory. The one unique thing about this game is doing a finishing move to take down an enemy permanently. All it is hitting a thing until its health goes down and hitting a button prompt. However, doing this results in an awkward world freeze moment where everything around literally stops moving until you're done. It interrupts any sort of flow in combat you might have had otherwise. It's probably to give you a bit of health and speed up the cooldowns of your abilities, but you're probably not going to be using them very much anyway. It doesn't take long to see the kind of strict routine South of Midnight has for you. Platforming, combat arena, platforming, combat arena, rinse, repeat, beat game. So, it's dull gameplay followed by annoying gameplay with some charming cutscenes here and there. Compulsion Games needs to seriously rethink how they design their gameplay. I don't know if they're afraid to experiment. I don't know if this is just a creative decision, but this marks their third title with the same exact frustrating problem of cool aesthetic but boring gameplay. Contrast suffered from this. We Happy Few suffered from this. Sadly, South of Midnight suffers from this. And yeah, this is exactly at the heart of what we are talking about when it comes to this style of protagonist in games. I don't actually care that Hazel is black or a girl or whatever. I have repeatedly made fun of the character for being ugly, but that isn't really a problem in and of itself. It simply means that the game is most likely going to suck. I can tell it won't be any fun because it wasn't made for me, and my pattern recognition has gotten to the point that whenever I see a character like this, I simply automatically assume it's going to be shit. Clearly, studios like this aren't making gameplay and fun their priority. These are people in search of accolades. They want to virtue signal, and they want the awards and praise that comes with it. So yes, the Gothic South might be a good idea for a setting, but the implementation is dog shit. But I'm gonna leave it there. Drop your thoughts on this game and your contempt for game journalists into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.